Masked MMA here. My typology is going to be Mask of MMA in case you're curious. And this is my recap of the UFC Edmonton Fight Night card. Moreno Albazi, Blanchfield Namajunas. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into it. Recap. So, first fight on the card. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I wasn't able to see the first three fights, which is quite funny considering that they were all ones I got wrong by decision. Um, Now, I did see some highlights. I did go back and see some highlights as soon as I could. Um, for Jamie Lynn Horth, I believe. I didn't really think that she won this, though it could have been. It's one of those women's MMA fights. It could have gone either way. I was surprised to see her as the moderate favorite, in all honesty. And yeah, I think that the results of this fight kind of justified that opinion because I did not think that she won this, though it was a very close fight. I mean, all women's MMA fights that are decision are, let's be honest, not all, okay, but most of them split decision. Usually they are. No surprise there. Then Cody Gibson and Chad and Hilliger, I think. This one was pretty clear for Cody Gibson. You could see that most people picked Gibson, which, yeah, I mean, I knew that going in, that it was a risky pick, but Chad, in my opinion, did have the better boxing. It was just a matter of could he not get taken down and not have so many submission attempts done on him, which he ended up having a ton of submission attempts done on him by Cody Gibson. And then moving up the card. So yeah, three in a row, not great. Serhi Sydney or Sidney, Garrett Armfield. Yeah, this one was the one I know least about. Going up the card from here, though, I've seen all the fights. This one, though, was, yeah, from what I've seen, it wasn't the most action-packed. It was quite mid, as this card was. These first three fights were quite mid, but no excuses for the first three losses there. It was, I knew that these were quite close in the odds, as well as most fans assumed that they were, but I had to go with the underdogs. They were too good, and oh well. Not much to say here. He was just overall more well-rounded, I believe, and that's what won him the fight. So, yeah, I mean, he also had the attributes. I just thought that Garrett Armfield had a better competition. He was more proven. This was a theme that I went with on this card, but it worked in the rest of the fights, but just not this one. And then we have Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Now, this one here was a pretty clear one for me, for Romanov, and for me to pick him, because in this one, we saw that, as I said going into this, Romanov has a boxing and smudge grappling advantage. They are both similar in that style, but Romanov was just superior at it. He was just a little bit lighter, a little bit more athletic, 3 pounds less. He had, granted, less reach, but that didn't matter because Rodrigo could only use it in the third round for the most part. He had a little bit of that success in the boxing, using his range, a little bit in the end of the second round, but it did not matter in the end because the smudge grappling from Romanov in the first round clearly got him that round, and It was a little bit more competitive in the second round, but arguably Romanov got that as well. And in the third round, he slightly outboxed him. So yeah, these guys are not athletic. They're blobs, but Romanov, I saw in the Blagoy Ivanov's fight, he was just better in the boxing. So showed in this as well. And that was the first one I got in this card, so yeah. And by decision. And this one I perfectly predicted. Second round submission from Yusuf Zalal. Now, what we see here is Jack Shore was, as I predicted, not necessarily quite the frame for a featherweight, and he never really will be. He is a little bit more fit in this fight, we could see. He did quite well in the first round, I thought. He was pushing the action, he was pushing the pace. He was the one who tried to get the takedowns in the first round, but Yusuf Zalal withstood the pressure. I know that this is something, watching him in his last three fights, seeing that he is a more passive fighter in the first half of the first round. And so he was just letting these things happen so that he can get a read on Jack Shore. And we saw that in the second round he was able to get the knee. Of course, he was finding his range, finding his timing in the first round. He was landing more strikes as the round went on, and he was gaining his confidence in his grappling. And we saw that in the second round, the knee into the takedown is what got him the submission. We saw that he has a very good squeeze, and I think he should fight. Um, I do think that Joe Anderson Brito is a fun one, but he's not ranked, and I think that Yusuf Zalal deserves a ranked fight. Um, yeah, as we could see, a lot of the UFC fans also see Zalal as a great prospect. Most people picking submission, but I think I picked it to a T. I was extremely ecstatic seeing the second round submission. And yeah, it's a great finish. Who should he fight? Dan Ige is the obvious one, but I think Edson Barboza would be a fun one as well. Them two are good gatekeepers to the top 15. And yeah, moving on. Charles Jourdain, Victor Henry. Yeah, this one I did expect Jourdain to win, but I was surprised that he showed off his grappling so much. I expected him to just mostly outstrike Victor Henry with the kicks, which he was doing quite a bit. I was surprised to see how much of the trips that Charles got. Now, Victor Henry got one of his own in the first round, and it was a pretty high-paced first round, so this was a good portion of the card, I must say. Zahabi versus Munoz, Jourdain, Henry, and then Zalal and Shore. Those were all great, not great, but decent decisions, or no, fights. The two here were submissions. But the Zahabi one with the Pedro Munoz, that was, I mean, even though Pedro Munoz didn't use much of his leg kicks, it was still a pretty fun one. And man, Pedro just does not know how to get knocked out. He just doesn't know how. He's like the Max Holloway of bantamweight in the sense that he just cannot get knocked out or knocked down even. But anyways, yeah, I do think the slight favorite was justified. Victor Henry, although he is decent, he's quite small. He's really a featherweight, if I'm being honest, though I don't know if he would be able to make that weight class. And 37, like, that's not good. That's not good in that is not good in lower weight classes even. So, yeah, I mean, not much to say here. He got a good squeeze. Charles Jourdain, we know that he has good squeezes. We saw his guillotine in, what was it? 3 fights ago, I think, against Ramos. Um, Good guillotine. though that guy is not very good. Let's see, he's not very good with guillotines. Ricardo Ramos, yeah, I noticed that he's not very good with guillotines. We saw against um, who did he fight last? Well, not Kulabao. Erosa. Erosa. Yeah, he also got guillotined against him. So, anyways, I'm getting off track. Point is, submissions, we know that he has, but I just thought that Henry would be able to tuck his chin, survive, but I'm glad that Charles got a submission here. He, yeah, he got a huge pop from the Canadian crowd. Pretty based, I must say, especially in the post-fight interview. Moving on. Zahabi and Munoz. Like I said, Munoz cannot get knocked down. It's just impossible. It's crazy. And he's just a little tank for the division. I think that maybe he thought that uh, the leg kicks wouldn't work because Zahabi is quite mobile, I noticed. And he is good defensively. He's just very well rounded. He's good. He's defensively good in like responsible. He's responsible for like blocking with his arms. You notice a lot in this fight. He blocks with his arms very well. I noticed that he was kind of posturing quite low so that he can actually hit Munoz because it's a thing that taller fighters do find it hard to hit these lower fighters, especially with the boxing. And Zahabi is known for the boxing. So it is interesting that he went to talk himself down to sort of meet Munoz's level in height. And I was surprised how close he was as a favorite because yes, Munoz has the kicks, and if he was able to get that off, it could have been problems. But otherwise, I don't see much areas where Munoz could have won here. I thought he should have been maybe a 280 as a favorite, something like that. Moderate favorite, I think. But I mean, Munoz was proven kind of like Bruno Silva. He was proven for quite some time in this division until he was fraud checked. So it's only a matter of time with these strong chinned people who take a lot of decisions, like Munoz, like Bruno Silva. They just eventually don't really. It's just the age and the fight time. It catches up to them, and they sort of lose themselves in taking a lot of damage. It's not really that they go down like Holloway, but they just lose that ability to get aggressive when it needs to. So, yeah. Now here is another boring one. I was right. This was really so mid it's scary. Perfect for Halloween pretty much. I mean, yeah, Mike Mallet. I mean, he did what he had to get the win. Trevin Giles is another one of those guys where it's just like, what are you doing? You're fighting like an NPC out there. I mean, I know that I picked Mallet and I wanted him to win, but he was just kind of not doing a whole lot. Now, granted, I did say that he was going to get dropped once or twice, and he didn't, which good job to him, but it was just it wasn't enough. His movement was great. It was better than Mallet's overall, I would say. Aside from the kicks, Mallet was clearly in the advantage with the kicks. He got a ton of kicks on in every single department, the legs, the body, the head. Mallet, although he wasn't really able to hit the target as far as the head is concerned, very often, especially with the boxing, he did get a few kicks in, and although most of them were blocked, Giles wasn't doing enough. He just didn't throw. He threw like maybe 30 strikes in the entire fight. It was crazy. Um, yeah, I think it justified being the moderate favorite, seeing how it played out, because Giles just didn't do much. But if he did more, maybe he could have been. If he actually went out there and just threw punches, it doesn't have to be technical. Seeing as Mallet wasn't really the most. In fact, I don't think that he was that speedy in this fight. Like Giles seemed to be the faster one. If Giles just went out there and just swinged, he could have gotten something done, I feel like, out there. But yeah, kind of really one of the most boring fights I've seen in recent memory. But hey, as Mallet said, he got his winning ways, so we'll see if he can keep it together. Now, this was something. We had a lot of decisions, but this was really something. Now, Marc-Andre Barriot, I thought that he was overall more technical in the striking, if only a little bit, because we saw against Chris Curtis, he went to a split decision there. But yeah, Dustin Stoltzfus, I don't think it's as much that he had the power advantage, though he might have had slightly. I think it was more that Marc-Andre Barriot never really recovered from that KO to Joe Pyfer. People say against Islam Makhachev for Alexander Volkanovski that head kick KO was the reason Ilya Taporia KO'd him. His chin never really recovered. And I don't agree there because it's more of a technique thing. And it's kind of like that here, except I also feel like the reactions from Marc-Andre Barriot to the punch, it just, to me, it was something more than that. It was something more than just the right technique. It was more sloppy here. It wasn't really like Ilya Taporia's was set up very well, very well, very well. And over here, it was more like they were just swinging and one of them connected better. And I feel like Andre Barriot is more about bar fights, more like. And we saw in his Chris Curtis fight that it went to a sort of bar fight in the end. And Joe Pyfer's, he got knocked out stiff. I just feel like at this point in his career, he's got to adopt a different approach because his chin is not holding up. That's how I feel. I don't see it as much of a Ilya Saporia Volkanovski thing where it's not actually the time off that he came off the couch too quick, but I think it's more. I think it is that actually here, but I don't think Ilya Taporia's was, is what I'm trying to say here. Ilya's was just technique, in my opinion. I mean, if you're going to KO Holloway, then that makes sense that you're able to KO Volk as well. Moving on, and yeah, this was actually okay. The first round was pretty boring, I must say, but I mean, once Jasmine got her ground and pound on, yeah, it was pretty vicious, I must say, especially for a women's fight. Um, yeah, the 78% from the Tapology picks were also justified here, I must say. I was surprised to see that. I forgot who, but one of the bigger MMA names did pick Lipsky. I think that there were some other good underdogs here that could have been picked, but Dustin Stoltzfus, but here I just did not see any really, aside from the kicks from Lipsky, I did not see any department where she was going to be very successful. I mean, Jasmine got the submission, but it was really the ground and pound, the softening up of De Silva, Ariana Lipsky, De Silva. It was really softening with the ground and pound that allowed her to get the submission, and that ground and pound opened things up. So, I mean, it was a great performance, and I think that she should actually. I mean, she is. That's three fights in a row now. I think that she's done more than Tracy Cortez, to be honest. I think she should get a top 15, like something higher up, something like a top 10 even, because I think that she's probably improved from the Tracy Cortez fight. I know she's 35, so she needs to get her wins together. She has three now. She needs to make a run, I think, at the title before it's too late. So Yeah, actually, pretty interesting. Women's fight, women's fighter, and yeah, I'd like to see. I would like to see some movement in that division. And then we're getting close to the top here. This one was just big meaty hooks, the fight. Literally. There was a few head kicks, a few kicks. But it was really a tale of big swinging hooks. It was just sloppy. This is what I'm talking about with this card. There's just not a lot of technique. You know it's gonna go to decision for most of these. And it was a good underdog, I think. Now he didn't get the KO like I thought he would, but I mean, you can't expect a guy who mostly goes to KO getting a decision. So I just didn't expect that to happen. But yeah, he didn't use the 3 inches of reach either very effectively. I thought it was quite sloppy, and I hope that he improves on his technique there. Because going into the Minying Zhang fight, there were some prominent MMA YouTubers that were talking about how, oh, well, he's fought in better competition than Minying Zhang. I'm, of course, referring to Brennison Ribeiro, but that doesn't matter when you're just not using your range effectively. It's just you're relying on your attributes, and yeah, I think Kyle Machado, three losses in a row. I think I wouldn't be upset at the UFC for cutting him, although he actually made it relatively close, even though I did give every round to Ribeiro. I was surprised it was a split, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, aside from the fact that Machado actually looked quite fit, which is unnormal for him considering he went to 205 coming down a weight class. I don't really see a point in them keeping him unless they want to feed him to an up and comer, which I mean, I wouldn't mind, but not too much to say there. Aaron Blanchfield versus Rose. Yeah, I mean, not a lot to say here. Rose just kind of went away from the game plan, trying to go for takedowns, kind of getting out brawled in the later rounds. But in the first 2 rounds, she was kind of looking like her vintage self, with good kicks, good punches, keeping her distance, keeping her range. When she's on point, she's a great female fighter. She looks almost like some of the better male strikers. But I mean, it's a women's MMA fight, so you can't expect the greatest IQ, you know? I mean, good underdog pick. I mean, no, actually, Blanchfield was the favorite. I was gonna say, good underdog pick by the Tapology fans. You could see here, 42%. I, uh, I mean, yeah, I thought that Rose would be able to sort of implement a similar style to Fiorot. And I honestly think that Manon Fiorot is probably going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. She was clearly outstriking Rose, and then she kept it on the feet against Erin Blanchfield enough and was outpointing her. So, I mean, 50-45 on all scorecards against Erin Blanchfield for Manon Fiorot. And then she just outstroked Rose at her own game. Like, Rose is kind of a technical kickboxer and even boxer. And you saw against Manon Fiorot that she kind of has the same style to Rose, almost. Not quite, but she has a pretty similar style. And you could see that in their fight, she was just outskilling Rose in most aspects. So, I mean, beating Rose at her own game, clearly destroying, not destroying, but winning every round against Blanchfield. I think that that warrants a pick against Shevchenko in my eyes. So yeah, I mean, what this showed to me is Manon Fiorot is really good, and I think she's a champion next. I mean, Shevchenko is 37 when she fights next. I think so. Yeah, I mean, Rose just got away from the game plan. I hear some people saying Pat Barry, like the Weasel, Pat Barry is not quite the right pick for a coach, and I understand that, you know. I kind of agree. I think Trevor Whitman is more technical. And if he was here, maybe he could have gotten Rose into the right mindset in the one of the latter three rounds, round three, four, or five. I feel like Rose could have won. She just didn't do enough. And Brandon Moreno, hey, he's vintage, vintage Brandon Moreno, back at it. Yeah, I think that he has either improved or gone back to his normal ways because in his last two fights he looked a little bit not the same. He especially against Royval. Now, I did say in my prediction video, I think that Royval did beat him, and I think I might have said that he fought a good Brandon Moreno, but I do think that the current Brandon Moreno is better than the one that we got like a year ago, 8 months ago, however long it was for his last two fights. And I do think that people were overrating Amir Albazi. For sure, people were saying what people were saying were crazy in my eyes. Amir Albazi barely, and it was a clear robbery by the way, but barely won against Kai Kara France, and Moreno beat him twice as far as I'm aware. So yeah, 31%. I mean, yeah, I can kind of see that. Some people were saying, you know, oh, Brendan Moreno, that's two in a row, two losses in a row. He's not looking too great. But he just needed time off. And like I said in the prediction video, he's younger than Amir Albazi. That's something that people weren't taking into consideration. He just needed time off. He was using his boxing much more effectively, much better, cleaner, jabs. His timing was on point. He was aggressive. He was chasing Amir down. I mean, aside from the overhands in the Brennan Royval fight, he wasn't really chasing Raw Dog Royval. So it was mostly just overhand into a leg kick or leg kick into an overhand. I mean, I get it, like Royval improved and he was hard to get into the range of, but I mean, he only had like a half-inch reach advantage against Moreno, so it shouldn't have been that hard, I think. But whatever, I mean, now maybe they could do the rematch. I think that would be great because, I mean, in the meantime, maybe Kaya Sakura will get the title. I don't think so, but who knows? This is MMA. Amir Albazi, people are saying for the UFC 312 card, Steve Erceg should fight, um, what is it, Miguel Cap? I like that one, but I wouldn't be upset with Amir Albazi fighting one of them too, whether it be Manel Cap or Steve Erceg, because I don't think we expect Bruno Silva. Um, is it Bruno Silva? Let me check. I don't think we expect Bruno Silva to beat Manel Cap. Um, and if he does, I mean, put him against Amir Albazi. That would be a good one. Bruno Silva, yeah. I almost I almost thought, wait a second, am I thinking of the wrong guy? He's from middleweight. But no, it's just same name. Yeah. Great performance from Brandon Moreno. 50-45, 50-45, 49-46. I think that's fair. One of the rounds could have gone to Amir, but I gave it a 50-45 as well. Yeah, I mean, Moreno might actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, Pantoja has a great legacy here, but Moreno can take the title back. I mean, he's way younger. He's like 5 years younger, almost. I think he can put together a streak and make a run for the title. And Raw Dog Royval, both of them are looking better. So, yeah, 8-3, no, 8-5, 8 out of 13 were right. Four perfect. I think I did okay on this card. I actually think I did better than okay. I thought I did decent. I I picked three underdogs early and they just didn't go my way. Decisions that were pretty close. The Cody Gibson one wasn't, but the other two splits they could have gone my way. And then, you know, Barriute, most people picked him. So I'm not mad at that. Most people picked Namajunas. So I think I picked some good, a few good underdogs, and yeah, that'll be all for the recap. Stay tuned for what I have uploading next. I will be talking about the next UFC event, Apex 100, I think it is, or Vegas 100, something like that. And yeah, you're gonna see me talking about another mid card until we get to the big one, UFC 309. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Have a good one.